I'm Batman.
You can call me Joker.
These videos are not for children. If you are a children, then piss off.
Hey there, it's me, your least favorite YouTuber, Infuso. And you guys voted on my Twitter for me to do a retrospective on the Tim Burton, Joel Schumacher Batman movies. And that's what I'm doing. So it all begins here, in 1989's Batman. So hey, side note, you remember when I said I didn't love the Dark Knight trilogy and everyone got really pissed? Okay, well, it's about to happen again.
How many times do we have to teach you this lesson, old man?
I love
Batman!
Because here I am about to talk about what was a lot of people's introduction to the Caped Crusader. The movie so many people absolutely love. And I just don't. I do not.
No, I'm sorry. I think the Batman thing, for whatever reason, it's just not grabbing me right now.
Don't get me wrong, it's not a bad movie by any means. But I'm just not super into it. And today, I'm gonna tell you why. A lot of my issues with the movie actually stem from the Joker.
Boo this man!
Wait, no, let's put the pitchforks down. Give me some time to explain. For the longest time, I always heard that Jack Nicholson was the best Joker. He was the best there ever was, the best there ever is, and he was the best there ever would be. Like seriously, everyone held him up like he was the gold standard. So much so that I remember way back when the news came out that Heath Ledger would be taking over the role, message boards were pissed. Everyone whined and complained and claimed that it was a disgrace to have him take over the role. But things have changed quite a lot since then, and a lot of the time, I think that Jack actually gets lost in the shuffle of the many talented performers who played the character. Don't get me wrong, I love Jack Nicholson. And I do think he did a great job as the Dark Knight's archenemy, but I've never seen this as being the best iteration of the character. I do think they got this right in casting, but Burton was probably somewhat limited to what he could or couldn't do. While this movie definitely has moments that make me go, oh shit, that is definitely the Joker.
You can call me Joker. And as you can see, I'm a lot happier.
Can somebody tell me what kind of a world we live in where a man dressed up as a bat gets all of my press?
You're crazy. Haven't you ever heard of the healing power of laughter?
It also has a bunch of moments that make me think, wow, that's a little bit too goofy even for the Joker. Yeah, I just wish he would have played it a little bit more The Shining meets anger management rather than Cesar Romero meets a PG-13 rating. A lot of the issues I have with this version of the Joker come less from what Jack Nicholson did with the character, and more from what the movie did with the character. The age difference between the Joker and Batman I always felt was weird. When I think of these two existing entities, I think of them around the same age group. You know, I think of two 30-somethings playing pretend underneath the Gotham streetlights. But in the movie, Joker is clearly much older than Bruce. Being that their first encounter was when Bruce was just a boy, and Joker was clearly already a man. The movie, which could have been as simplistic as good meets evil, suddenly turns into a strange, unwanted love triangle. Joker gets a crush on Vicki Vale, Vicki's already got a thing for both Batman and Bruce Wayne. Go figure. And it's really odd. I don't see the Joker as a necessarily sexual being. I mean, sure, yeah, he had a romance with Harley, but that wasn't about love or attraction, that was about having someone to manipulate. Even if I was to see the Joker as a sexual being, I wouldn't think that he would necessarily be the pursuer. And even if he was, I don't think I would want to see him as some love-struck loser and obsessed sleazebag. It's just not the Joker I know, and it's not one I want to know either. The movie gave the Joker the origin story of being a mobster, and I don't really love that direction. As a matter of fact, that was one of my less beloved moments of the animated series. I think the concept was done best in The Killing Joke, where the Joker was shown not to be a wise guy, but a man working with the mob for a one-time payout. For me, organized crime is just a little bit too, well, organized for the Joker. He's anarchy incarnate. He's a loose cannon who plays exclusively by his own rules, and he changes those rules every chance he gets. So seeing him as some other dude's flunky in a striped suit, that's just not the Joker to be. Well, to me, at least. To me, the Joker's origins are better off unknown. Better off unknown to the reader, better off unknown to the viewer, and maybe even better off unknown to himself. Whoever he was before doesn't matter. It's who he is now that counts and should probably be accounted for. Like many, I prefer his multiple choice background, where viewers get to choose their own origin for the character, or just accept them all as fiction. But I do think there have been some solid alternate takes to the story, like in the movie Joker and in shows like Gotham. The mob guy thing just doesn't do it for me. But I think what I like the least about the Joker in the 1989 movie is that in addition to the age group, they also had the Joker play the role of Joe Chill in Bruce's origin story. I feel like the sole reason the movie made the Joker the guy that murdered Bruce Wayne's parents was to have this whole weird symbiotic relationship between the hero and the villain. Because now the Joker is responsible for the creation of Batman, and Batman is responsible for the creation of the Joker. It kind of sounds like a paradox, but it plays out pretty well. It's a great concept, but not such a great concept for Batman and the Joker. See, Joker and Batman already have the perfect dynamic. They're two conflicting energies, two entirely different mentalities and ways of life, and yet they're both linked through their own shared psychosis. Listen, we can sit here and talk about how good and moral Batman is, and clearly, while his heart is in the right place, it's very obvious that his head isn't.
The cape?
Unless you'd be willing to give real-life people a free pass when they decide to dress up as a giant rodent, and go out and intentionally look for problems. I question why they decided to give Joker a pre-clown love interest in the form of Alicia, only for him to randomly kill her off-screen without any rhyme or reason. I guess it could have been done to show how unpredictable and terrifying the Joker could be, but I think you already accomplished that once you signed Jack Nicholson up for the role. I also got some real Black Mask and Serfs vibes. What with these two characters' dynamic and the overall backstory. It's very reminiscent of these two from the comics. What with the mob boss intentionally disfiguring his girlfriend and then her becoming completely subservient to him. The Joker was always my least favorite part of this movie, even from the time I watched it as a kid. But now that I'm older and I got a chance to re-watch the movie for this video, yes, I haven't watched this movie all that often, I'm now realizing that it has very little to do with Jack Nicholson. Rewatching it now, I get the hype around his performance. I mean, I don't think it's the definitive Joker like many insisted when I was younger, but it definitely has a place in both the top 10 Joker performances and the top 10 Jack Nicholson performances. Though it's saying that, I still stand by my original opinion that Jack Nicholson was capable of a better Joker performance than the one he gave, even if the one that he did give is pretty great in its own right. One thing I have to give this movie credit for is that I think they had a great concept of screen time management. You know, I think it hit that nice middle ground where we saw just enough of Bruce and just enough of Batman to understand the duality of the character. In the sense that we got to see him in his two separate lives, and we also learned how they compared and how they conflicted. And Michael Keaton as Batman? I mean, really? Do I have to tell you how great he is as Batman? 'Cause, like, honestly, what can I say about Michael Keaton that hasn't already been said? There's a reason that this guy is the personification of Batman to so many people. I think he really captures the social awkwardness of a man who witnessed his parents' untimely deaths, and then spent the rest of his adolescence in shadows.
Excuse me. Excuse me. Excuse me. Could you tell me which of these guys is Bruce Wayne?
Well, I'm not sure.
But he still retains a certain amount of natural charm and charisma. So despite his occasional strangeness, he still has a real likability to him.
Bruce Wayne.
Are you sure?
Yeah, this time.
I will say, I wish there was a little bit more of a front for when he portrayed Bruce Wayne. I already spoke in the past about Batman's identity. And I talked about how Bruce Wayne is the true mask, and Batman is his true identity. But here, we don't really get that. He pretty much just plays the character as Batman all the way through, mask or not. But it's still a really, really great performance. And I think we learn more about the actual man behind the mask because of it. Keaton also has a very unassuming presence to him. He doesn't necessarily look like a threat. He looks like, well, a normal guy. As a matter of fact, he looks like the most ordinary guy. And I think that kind of works in his favor. This is the last dude that you would assume would be running around the streets of Gotham beating thugs to a bloody pulp. To me, it adds another layer. Who's gonna believe that this guy is some buffed up night ninja in a strange Zorro cosplay? His stoicism never at any point feels forced. You know, you never really feel like he's putting on a performance. It's all very second-natured and natural. You know, you don't have someone deepening their voice to try and sound scary.
What the hell are you? I'm Batman.
There's already something just naturally intimidating about this man in the cowl.
What are you? I'm Batman.
Even if it sounds like he's whispering to you indiscreetly, it's still very alarming. There are elements from this movie's depiction of its titular hero that I don't really love. I don't like that Bats openly and intentionally kills people. I will never like that. To me, that is not the character. But in that same breath, this movie does showcase the Dark Knight as an expert in hand-to-hand combat, an intelligent investigator and detective. Oh yeah, and a fucking scientist, which is not something you get in every Batman project. Overall, I can just go on and on and on about how good Michael Keaton is, but I'll just keep it short and say, there's a reason people are excited to see the return of this Batman in the upcoming Flash movie. Kim Basinger plays the role of Vicki Vale mostly well, but I feel like the movie tries to showcase her as Lois Lane Zero, and I don't feel like that really works. There's some scenes where she really shines in the role, but she can also come across from time to time as flat or otherwise bored. She mostly seems lively and alert in her scenes with Bruce Wayne, and their romance, while a little bit underdeveloped, is at least believable. But of course, she becomes a plot device in the movie's damsel in distress about halfway through it, so I really don't have all that much to say about her. Upon rewatching this for the first time in years, I was surprised to see Commissioner Gordon taking a somewhat active role in the story. Sure, he's not always on screen, but when he is on screen, he's doing his job. I guess my memory of this actor in the role is mostly from the latter films in this lineup. We'll get to later. One of them, unfortunately. In the later movies, he's kind of played off as a complete, ineffective, oafish buffoon.
You're way too old for me.
No, I'm not. Please, come back.
A sad, round, pitiful excuse of a man, which of course I can relate to. But I'm glad to see that that wasn't the case here. Even if he doesn't have a relationship with Batman or Bruce Wayne and shares all of one scene with him in the very opening of the movie. The character of Knox is the comic relief here, and he's actually pretty fine in that department. He never overstays his welcome, and he adds some much-needed personality to a movie filled with broody Batmen, homicidal clowns, and a colorless gothic city.
Knox, I got something for you.
Very funny. You should have a little more gore under the fangs, though, right? What a dick.
Isn't anybody gonna go on record? Your Honor, great suit. No comment.
I'm really surprised that he didn't return in some form or fashion in the sequel. And apparently he was never even considered for the sequel. And I don't know about you, but that sounds like a goddamn mistake to me. Though it was nice finally seeing him again after all these years in the Crisis on Infinite Earths event. Your presence was severely missed. So I'm just saying, you know, I don't see any reason that he shouldn't show up for the Flash movie. And while we're on the subject of characters, why the hell was Lieutenant Eckhart not Harvey Bullock? Actually, I know the answer. Allegedly, it was because Tim didn't want there to be two Harveys in the script. What with Billy D. Williams playing District Attorney Harvey Dent. And speaking of Billy D. Williams playing District Attorney Harvey Dent, now I'm gonna be real with you.
If I can be serious for a minute.
Typically, I don't like race or gender swapping characters in movies. I like things sticking as close to the source material, at least spiritually, as possible. I don't need the same exact events, I just need the characters to feel like they're the characters. So major changes to their identity, I'm not really for. Let somebody finally make the White Spawn movie I've been hearing about for years, and I swear to God, and I will light all of these tiki torches. Though in saying that, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world. Ultimately, I think the most important thing is performance. And if there's a performance powerful enough to transcend that barrier, fuck it. Because to me, that's what means more than anything else. And this is absolutely one of those cases. Harvey Dent is traditionally white in the comics. And that doesn't mean a goddamn thing because Billy D. Williams embodies what the character was meant to be. Harvey Dent is an intelligent, smooth-talking, charismatic man who used his gift of gab to rise through the political rankings in Gotham. Oh, and typically he's easy on the eyes and not too bad with the ladies either. They don't call this guy Handsome Harvey for nothing. Casting Lando Calrissian in the role? Fucking brilliant. Unfortunately, though, the movie doesn't seem to do a whole lot with the character. And he doesn't even turn up for the sequel. Instead, the character eventually comes back, but now he's recasted as Tommy Lee Jones in Batman Forever, who is noticeably not only not Lando Calrissian, but is also not black.
Whoa, wait a... That guy isn't black! You son of a bitch, you told me this guy was African American!
I'm supposed to believe that Tommy Lee Jones has the same energy as Billy D. Williams? I don't know about that. Tough sell.
I cannot sanction your buffoonery.
It's a real shame because I'd really like to see what both Tim Burton and Billy D. Williams would have done with this character. You know, after the new makeover. He of course played the character again in the Lego movie, but he was really just a cameo and a wink and a nod at the audience. But hey, if Batman 66 can get animated follow-ups in the late 2010s, I'm not ruling anything out just yet. All I'm saying is I think we were robbed of seeing Billy D. really make the character his own. The older I get, the more I appreciate him in this role. But again, I wish he actually had something to do with it. It's such a good casting choice to just waste his talents as... well, quite frankly, it's unacceptable! In terms of Alfred performances, I personally prefer Alfred being a little bit more sarcastic. I like the quick on his feet, witty asshole in a tux. Like, ideally, when I think of Alfred, I think of Jeffrey from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. That's what I want to see in my Alfred.
Jeffrey, Will's been hypnotized. The great Mentos made him think he's 4 years old.
Can he make me think I care?
However, these movies instead chose to have the sweetest old man who ever lived play the role, and it's probably the most wholesome thing about any Batman movie ever. It's not my Alfred per se, but he's definitely still got a seat at the table. And I truly appreciate just how genuine and borderline precious this guy comes across. I think the most underrated role in all of this has to be Jack Palance's crime boss Carl Grisham. He's essentially a blend of Rupert Thorne and Carmine Falcone, and it surprisingly works really well. He doesn't have a whole lot of screen time, but he does have an awesome name. So, there is that. And then of course there's Bob. How could you not love Bob? There's no reason to love him, but you can't help it. Burton's influence over the franchise really gave the city of Gotham a gothic feel. This atmosphere really complements the material and the dark character that is Batman. I think Danny Elfman's score really adds a lot to the film, and it really helps give it its own unique personality. I've never been able to hear a picture before I've seen stills from this movie, and this music would essentially become the definitive Batman background. As Elfman would come back to do music for the sequel Batman Returns, music for Batman the Animated Series, and his score would even be used again in the Justice League movie decades later. So yeah, speaking of music, here's an opinion that no one will like. I'm just gonna say it. I'm sorry. No disrespect to anybody here, but I don't like the Prince soundtrack. I'm sorry, I don't. The interesting thing is, I like Prince, I like Batman, but I don't want Prince in my Batman movie.
Batman soundtrack.
There was obviously very conflicting energy between the dark and broody nightly shadow of a man that is Batman, and the eccentric, undeniably otherworldly sound that is Prince. I don't know who thought mashing these two worlds, these two complete opposites together would work, but I don't think it does. Outside of the party man scene with the Joker, I like that, I enjoy that scene. Outside of that one scene, it just doesn't work. In hindsight, the soundtrack is fine. I like the soundtrack. But it's just like what I said before about Prince and Batman. I like the soundtrack, I like the movie, I like them separately. Pairing them together, I don't know. That shit is still baffling to me. I don't understand. And maybe those putting this together did neither. And that might be the problem. There's a bunch of smaller issues I also have with the movie. There's a man dressing up as a bat jumping rooftop to rooftop in Gotham City. So don't you think Vicki Vale would be somewhat suspicious of the guy sleeping upside down like a fucking bat? Don't you think at some point she'd say, oh yeah, maybe that's a guy worth throwing in the lineup? I mean, come on, Vicki, you're a goddamn journalist! Also, everyone in town, they know Bruce Wayne, he's a famous figure. Everyone knows Bruce Wayne, but no one knows of his tragic backstory. You know, Bruce's family was just one of the richest in all of Gotham. They were celebrities in their own city. But somehow everyone missed Wayne's murdered in Crime Alley. That just didn't make the papers. Were there other more important things going on? Did their deaths correlate with Taco Tuesday? I don't know. How is it possible that Vicki Vale and Knox didn't know about this? Vicki Vale and Knox, who were once again journalists. Batman is supposed to be the world's greatest detective, but he only skims through Jack Napier's files? He completely disregards and doesn't see the mugshot that would identify him as his parents' killer? How? Alfred taking the liberty of exposing Bruce Wayne's secret to Vicki Vale, I would say seems forced, but that's because it was. Alfred literally forced Bruce out of hiding, and if I was Bruce, I'd just be like, hey, Al, buddy, understand that you and my dad were kind of tight back in the day, but my father ain't here anymore, and now neither are you. You're gonna have to pack your bags and hop on out of here.
I could be fired for this, sir. Perhaps they'll have me back at Buckingham Palace.
I think this movie has the exact opposite problem that The Dark Knight had. In The Dark Knight, despite being a Batman movie, the focal point was the show-stealing Joker, because Heath gave such an incredible performance that everything else seemed boring by comparison. But here, the best part of this movie is Batman, which is fitting as the name of the movie is in fact Batman. But outside of those ears and cape, there's really not a whole lot happening. Everything outside of Batman seems, I don't know, not necessarily bad, but just very meh. Now look, while this may not be the definitive Batman to me, there's no denying that it undoubtedly inspired other performers in the role, and it helped mold the image of the Caped Crusader that the general public knows and loves today. You gotta think, before this, we had those really cheap, cheesy Batman serials, which I will eventually get to on this channel, and we had Batman going to bars, drinking a nice tall glass of OJ, and then going out on the dance floor to bust a move. That was the Batman that people knew at the time. Many people, myself included here, see the animated series and the Arkham series as the definitive versions of the character. But the thing is, the animated series wouldn't even exist had it not been for the success of the 1989 Batman movie. Tim Burton's Batman may not be my Batman, but this Batman was the catalyst for what would become my Batman. The guy was the dark blueprint. So yeah, despite the title, I do actually like this movie. But I don't think that I like it the way most other people do. I enjoy it, sure. And I can acknowledge that despite having a couple of faults and flaws, some which are very, very blasphemous to me, it's still a mostly competent movie. I just don't think that it's the best Batman movie. But luckily, I'll be talking about what I think is the best Batman movie in the next installment of this retrospective. So until then, I was your least favorite YouTuber, Infuso, and I thank you for watching. Hope to see you in the next one. And to whoever leaves the first comment on this video, I just want you to remember that you are my number one guy.
I am vengeance. I am the night, and that was Infuso. Just remember, if you're not tuning in, then you're missing out.
So, if you like the words that came out of his mouth hole, and you too would like to become a V-generate, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, nerds!
And if you're not joining the fun, you're in for one bad day. And you know what they say about having one bad day?
Catch him next time. Same bat time. Same bat channel.